Hello friends, in this video we will analyze in detail everything related to concentration, dispel a couple of myths, and I will give you useful life hacks that you can apply right after watching and see the results. Happy viewing! Write down what you liked or didn't like, and also offer your ideas. What do you want to see next video about, or what interests you in life in general? Like, subscribe, and go. Focus, what it is and how it works. Let's start with the most basic. What is concentration of attention? According to the definition of psychologists, this is an act of directing interest or action on one goal. Yes, it sounds boring, but there is a very important idea hiding here. What is attention span? To concentrate on one thing, you have to ignore everything else. Concentration appears only when we say yes to one option and no to everyone else. In other words, an exception is a prerequisite for concentration. What you do not depend on what you can do. Of course, in order to remain focused, a constant no is not required. It is important to say no now, at the moment. You can do something else later, but now you should focus on one thing only. Focusing is the key to productivity. Saying no to any other options reveals your ability to complete one remaining case. Now for the important question, what needs to be done to focus on things that matter and ignore the useless? Why can't concentrate? Most people have no trouble concentrating. They have difficulty making decisions. We can convince ourselves to focus on business if we remove from the way everything that distracts. Have you ever had a task that needed to be completed at all costs? You did it because the deadline made a decision in your place. You may be procrastinating, but as soon as the case forces you to make a decision, you act. Often, instead of making a difficult decision and choosing one thing, we convince ourselves that it is better to multitask. But this is an inefficient approach, and here's why. The myth of multitasking. And many people even attended multitasking trainings, and I'm no exception. Why multitasking doesn't work? Technically, we can do two things at the same time. For example, watch TV and cook dinner or answer incoming calls during a phone call. But focusing on two things at the same time is impossible. You either watch TV, stirring pasta in a pan in the background, or cook pasta, and the TV becomes background noise. At any given moment in time, you concentrate on one or the other. Multitasking makes your brain quickly switch attention from one thing to another. And if the human brain could move from one job to another without additional efforts, there would be no problem. But our head doesn't work like that. Remember the situation when someone interrupted you when you wrote a letter. When the conversation ends, it usually takes you a few minutes to navigate, remember what you wrote about, and continue. Something similar happens when you do several things at once. Each time you switch from one task to another and vice versa, you have to make mental efforts. In psychology, this is called the switching cost effect. Switching costs are the productivity disruptions that we experience when we shift our attention from one thing to another. Numerous studies have already shown that being distracted by a regular email check every 5 minutes, a person spends an average of 66 seconds, no less, to resume the current task. In other words, because of email alone, we waste 1 minute out of every 6. How to focus and increase attention span. Let's talk about how to overcome our penchant for multitasking and focus on one thing at a time. How to understand which of the many possible options you need to pay attention to. Warren Buffett's strategy, 2 lists. One of my favorite methods to focus on the important and exclude everything else came up with the famous investor Warren Buffett. Buffett used a 3-step strategy to increase personal productivity to help his employees prioritize and plan their actions. Once, Buffett invited his personal pilot to perform a simple 3-step exercise. Step 1. To start, Buffett asked pilot Mike Flint to record 25 major career goals. It took Flint some time to figure out and write. Tip: you can perform this exercise with goals for a short period of time. For example, make a list of 25 things you want to finish this week. Step 2. Then, Buffett asked Flint to review his list and select the 5 most important goals. It took Flint time again, but in the end he chose the 5 highest priority goals. Step 3. At this point, Flint has 2 lists. The 5 most important items were put together on list A, and the other 20 were put on list B. Flint decided that he would immediately begin work on the 5 most important goals. And at that moment, Buffett asked what he was going to do with the second list. Flint replied, "The 5 most important goals are my main focus, but the 20 others are important too, so I will work on them from time to time when the opportunity presents itself. Of course, they are not so urgent, but I still plan to pay attention to them." To which Buffett said, "No, Mike, you misunderstood everything. All but the 5 main goals are a list of things to avoid at all costs. No matter what happens, you should not pay attention to list B until you have achieved all 5 of the most important goals." I love the Buffett method, because it encourages you to make a difficult decision and exclude cases that can be considered a good waste of time, but not the best. Thus, from tasks that distract attention, you choose those that are really worth the time. This is only one way to direct your attention and abstract from all distractions. There are others, such as the Eisenhower matrix or the Ivy Lee method. But no matter what method you use and no matter how serious you are, at some point the concentration disappears. How to stay focused longer? To do this, you need to perform 2 simple steps. Measure your results. Mindfulness often disappears due to lack of feedback. Naturally, your brain wants to know if you are able to achieve your goals. We all have areas of life that, we argue, are very important to us, but which we do not track. This is fundamentally the wrong approach. Only with numbers and full tracking can we do something when we get better or worse. When I began to count how many push-ups I did, I became stronger. When I began to follow the habit of reading 20 pages a day, I read more books. When I wrote down my values, I became more principled. The tasks that I monitored remained in the center of my attention. Unfortunately, we often avoid measuring results because we are afraid that the numbers will be unimpressive. Understand that measurement is not to judge yourself. This is just the feedback that is needed to understand what stage you are currently at. Measure to discover, recognize, understand. Measure to get to know yourself better. Measure because it helps you focus on things that matter to you. Appreciate progress and the process itself, not performance indicators. The second thing you can do to keep your attention longer is to focus on the process, not the events. Too often, we conceive of success as an event that can be achieved and completed. Here are some examples. Many people imagine health as an event. If I can lose 10 kilograms, I will be in great shape. Many people imagine entrepreneurship as an event. If we wrote about our business on some popular site or showed on the news, we would have come to success. Many people present art as an event. If my paintings were exhibited in a large gallery, I would become famous. These are just a few of the many examples where we define success as a single event. But if you look at people who are focused on their goals, you will understand that it is not events or results that matter, but concentration on the process itself. These people love what they do. And the funny thing is, focusing on the process in any case allows you to enjoy the results. If you want to be a good writer and release a bestseller, that's fine. But the only way to achieve this result is to love writing. If you want the whole world to know about your business, it would be nice to write about you in Forbes magazine. But the only way to achieve this is to love the promotion process. If you want to be in good shape, you may really need to lose 10 extra pounds. But the only way to achieve this result is to love a healthy diet and do exercises. If you want to become much better in any business, you must love the process itself. You should fall in love with building an image of a person who is engaged in a business, and not just dream about the desired results. Focusing on goals and results is our natural tendency, but focusing on progress leads to great results in the long run. Life hacks to improve concentration. Even when you are genuinely in love with the process and know how to stay focused on your goals, daily practice can bring chaos and harm your mindfulness. Here are some additional ways to increase concentration. I remind you that one very effective way to develop concentration is already on the channel: exercise with a point, look and try to perform. Let's continue. 1. Select an anchor task. Choose one, and only one, priority for each business day. Although I plan to complete other tasks during the day, my priority is one non-negotiable case that I must complete. I call it the anchor task. Thanks to a single priority, we, without hesitation, begin to build a life around this commitment. 2. Manage your energy, not time. If a task requires you to be fully focused, plan it at a specific time of the day when you have the strength for it. For example, I noticed that my creative energy is highest in the morning. In the morning I am peppy, write better and make better strategic decisions. Therefore, I plan all the creative tasks for the morning. And I put aside all other working matters for the second half of the day: phone calls, replies to letters and chats, analysis and processing of numerical information. Virtually every productivity strategy includes advice to better manage your time. But time itself is useless if you do not have the strength to complete the task. 3. Never go to social networks in the morning. If it does not concern work. Concentration is the elimination of all distractions. And social networks can be the biggest distraction. I understand that it makes no sense to many people to wait for the afternoon, but I want to challenge you like that. Can you wait until 10 in the morning? Or until 9? Until 8:30? The exact time limit is not so important. The bottom line is that you can make time for yourself in the morning, when you can focus on what is most important to you. 4. Leave the phone in another room. I usually put my phone away in the morning. It is much easier to tune in to work if SMS, phone calls or notifications are not distracting. 5. Work in full screen mode. Every time I run a program on a computer, I use it in full screen mode. If I read an article on the internet, the browser takes up the entire screen. If I edit images in Photoshop, the program window is the only thing I can see. I set up the desktop so that the menu bar disappears automatically. When I work, I do not see the time, application icons and all other distracting things. Well, in connection with my professional activity, I have 2 monitors. It seems a trifle, but in terms of concentration, this is a very important action. If you see the application icon, then from time to time you are tempted to click on it. However, if you remove the visual signal from the field of view, then the desire to distract disappears after a few minutes. 6. Remove all tasks that interfere with your concentration in the morning. I love to do the most important things in the morning, because at this time there is still no rush. Therefore, it is better to postpone the first breakfast later in order to free up some extra time in the morning for work, rather than cooking. No matter what strategy you follow, remember that when the world distracts you, all you have to do is stick to one thing. At first, you may not succeed. But you just need to start. 7. Know how to take breaks. It has long been proven that real labor productivity is manifested in certain cycles: involvement in the working process 10 to 15 minutes, 30 minutes of the most efficient work, stage of gradual exhaustion, in 45 minutes from the moment of the beginning of work. That is why it is advisable to take short 10-minute breaks between cycles of the labor process. This change of work and rest allows you to maintain your own performance at a really high level throughout the day. Thoughtless immersion in work without rest depletes strength and is as unproductive as a constant relaxed state. Switch to an effective mode of operation in which hourly intensive employment is replaced by a 10-minute break, and you will see how much more productive you have become to work. In the next video, I will show you a few dozen of the best exercises for concentration training. Click the bell to view and implement first. Good luck to everyone, bye-bye.